On today's show, the Hawks are prepping for a series that begins on Saturday in Boston, and I'll be joined by old friend, fan favorite Tyler Jones is back on the podcast. All that and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1451 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland. It is Wednesday evening into Thursday. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. And if you're looking for the perfect fit in the motor vehicle space, eBay Motors is the place to go ahead and do that. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit, ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And with that said, I am joined on today's podcast by old friend, the most frequently requested person on this podcast always. I got one last night, immediately after the game, like, when's Tyler coming back? Well, the answer is right now. Tyler, hello.
So, Brad, I got to start off with the obvious question. Who the Falcons picking at 8?
I was prepared for Braves talk. I was not prepared for Falcons talk.
Can't talk
the Falcons are going to do something that's not smart. So let's, I don't know, running back?
Bijan season?
Yeah, the next Derrick Henry.
Oh my goodness!
Your guy Arthur Smith going to replicate the Tennessee offense? Is that what we're going for?
Yeah, you already have the best running back in the NFL, rookie running back in the NFL. Why not pair him with the next season's best running back in the NFL? Got to have multiple running backs, multiple tight ends. That's how you score points in the NFL. That's what I'm hearing. I haven't been watching football like I used to, but.
I think we're on top of things there. All right, we're off to a rousing start. Okay, so I do have to say, there's one bit of news. Now you already know what this is, but for people listening to the podcast, I almost did it without you, but you're here. The schedule is out for the series against Boston, so we know when the games are going to be happening. The first one we already knew, it's Saturday. Then it's Tuesday, game 2 in Boston. And the home games are Friday the 21st and Sunday the 23rd in Atlanta. From there, it gets off the rails and becomes TBD, of course, because only the first 4 games are guaranteed. But all prime time after game 1, there's an NBA TV game sprinkled in there. But the folks at Bally are back for the playoff series. So people did not like listening to the national broadcast. I got a lot of feedback about that on Tuesday. Bally's back for round 1. So there you go. Dial it in.
Bob and Neek for the home team. Yeah, I don't know where to start though, Brad, because that was a satisfying win. That was one of the most satisfying wins, not just because of how the Hawks played, but because it was against the Miami Heat. And I don't.
Did you see Quinn's? Did you see the video that the Hawks put out about Quinn's locker room speech after the game?
With the F-bomb muted?
Yeah.
Multiple times?
Yeah. So number one, I love that. Now that's just to pull the curtain back. Obviously, they can't ever show the whole thing. So, they have to be kind of selective. He did swear in the video. So, if you don't like that, don't watch it. But
it is muted. It is muted.
It's kind of muted, but you can tell what he says. Anyway, he didn't run from it. It wasn't like, let's get the next one. It was basically saying that was a hell of a win, but more demonstrative than that. Great win. And it was. I mean, you know me, I'm not the most effusive guy in the world, but I came on, I jumped on with Kevin and Glenn last night too, and I was like, guys, they just played great. I mean, they really did. To win that game and not shoot well, and win it decisively, missing free throws and missing all your threes, and you win it going away. If they have a decent shooting game, they won by 25. It was stark. I just wasn't expecting that. Not that they couldn't win. I mean, I got some grief from Hawks fans today because I picked Miami to win the game if I had to choose a team because they were favored in the game they're playing at home. The Hawks were the first team ever to win the 7-8 game as the 8 seed. So it wasn't like I was out on a limb picking Miami, but I did say I would have taken the Hawks to keep it close at the very least. And they played great. I mean, obviously we can talk about what happened, but you're obviously you're a fan, and it did feel like people were a little bit more juiced up because it was Miami. Is that the sentiment you're passing along? Was a little bit extra because it was Miami?
I can't speak for other people. I can only speak for myself because Miami's one of the glamour franchise in the NBA, and we always get to hear about heat culture, and apparently heat culture is getting out rebounded by what 30? They got what was it like 62-33 or something like that? Like just absolutely manhandled. I did enjoy that. Very Nathan
Physicality
game. If you think about it, just they won the possession battle by getting more rebounds. They didn't turn the ball over, and they shot more than the Heat. So like I was very old fashioned from the Hawks. Granted, to me, I mean, you guys talked about if you want a real recap about the game last night, 18-29 is pretty good because
What lost on Hawks, man?
I mean, because it's like I'm like it'd be rehashing the same point. It'd be like, okay, well, Hawks executed. I mean, one thing I will say is like I feel like that felt like a game where at the point of attack, the Hawks were really executing defensively as a team to stop teams to stop the Heat from getting to their spots, to get dribble penetration, to get middle. Like it was a team effort. Like, and that's defense in the NBA today. Like no one defender is going to stop somebody one-on-one consistently in the NBA. It's you got to have help. You got to have people being aware of where each other are. And like, it was so nice to see this Hawks team communicate with each other and like really scheme the Heat out of what they wanted to do. Like they took away Jimmy Butler's bread and butters, like, and a lot of that goes to the just individual players not biting on pump fakes, not biting on the grifts that, even though Butler got 11 free throws, I mean, still, I felt like the Hawks limited what Jimmy could do on the floor and how he could impact offensively. And that really helped because like the rest of the Heat offensively aren't that dynamic outside of maybe Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero's okay, but like he's not a shot creator the way Jimmy Butler can drive an offense. And it was odd to see Kyle Lowry bring it back to 2019 for him, but
yeah, that was basically it.
I really cannot wait till he retires. I am.
Well, Glenn, our mutual friend Glenn is probably the lowest in the world on Kyle Lowry, so he had a tough one last night. But no, it's to your point earlier, like, I never want to go too crazy about game plans. It's the NBA, players have to execute, but they had a great game plan too. Like Quinn and the staff, like credit to them, they were ready to play Miami, and this different version of Miami. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay what the Hawks did, but this is not the same team Miami had a year ago. This is not the same team. Like they're just not that good. I think the Hawks knew that. I think the Hawks basically treated them like they weren't that good in preparation. It was like, we respect Jimmy, we respect Bam, and the rest of you guys, like, we're not worried about you. And that's the way they kind of approached it. And it's the right move. It's kind of not the exact same way. It's kind of what the Heat did to the Hawks last year with Trey, where like they were just not going to let Trey beat them. And there's no way that was going to happen. And it worked. And Jimmy had a bad game for Jimmy. Like, I should say Jimbo in your honor, since you call him Jimbo all the time.
Yep, Jimbo.
Our guy Jim, like he didn't play that well. And if the way that game would have been closer, or the Miami might have snuck out of there with a win, is if Jimmy had a great game, and he didn't. And Bam was ordinary. He was fine, but didn't play great either. And like the way they played that game, Jimmy would have had to have 40. Honestly,
yeah, he would have to have 40, and he had to get to the free throw line like way more than even though he shot 11 again. He shot 11.
Well, he did in the first quarter, and then they stopped fouling. And then to the Hawks' credit, they stopped fouling after the first quarter, and I think they only allowed 11 or 12 the rest of the game. I think it was 8 or 9 in the first quarter, and then that was really like 20 free throws, 20 attempts allowed in the game is excellent.
To the Heat team, that's all Kyle Lowry has. I mean, granted, he was making shots. I'm gonna stick to Kyle Lowry for a bit. Why do referees not see what he's obviously doing? I really don't understand. That's the thing that irks me. The man's been in the league for like 15 plus years, or however, like it might be less than that, but like he's just a grifter. And if a guy runs into him and he falls down, you got to assume he's like tugging at somebody, causing the contact. I don't know. I really can't wait for that man to retire. Like that's the one player I can't stand in the NBA. And I really appreciate that the Hawks, even though he went off, like I really appreciate like Jalen Johnson just constantly snagging offensive rebounds against him, and then Kyle Lowry turn around and be like, "Whose man is that?" I was like, "It's kind of yours, old man." But so yeah, I'm happy he's gone. Sad for Jimmy's wasting his time with this Heat team because they aren't very talented. I mean, okay. The one thing I will say, because like it is weird that the Hawks were such underdogs across like the NBA landscape. When I'm like, I mean, I get the Hawks have been inconsistent, but like they're so much more talented than this Heat team.
Well, and here's actually, I want to get back to this in a second. So I'm going to go to a break real fast. I have a question to ask you about that exact same thing. So hold on tight. We'll be right back. More with Tyler. First word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit for you. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. And so the next time you look to buy parts or accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part that you actually need fits right. And that's so the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Look for the green check to know the part will be actually fitting for you or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are absolutely guaranteed. Get the right parts for you, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. One more time, that is ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Okay, to what we were talking about before, the talent level thing, because I think you're 100% right. And I'm not sure I drove this home enough last night, so I want to make sure we do it now. Even if you thought, let's say, line up, 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, whatever. Let's say nationally, I think a lot of people will probably pick Jimmy and Bam over, let's say, Trey and DeJounte as your 1 and 2, right? You may not, but given their track record, I think people would mostly pick Jimmy and Bam.
Yeah, because they've been on national TV more. That
Correct. That has a lot to do with it. Jimmy's playoff stuff, all that stuff. Anyway, forget about that for a second. Even if I'm more on your side. From 3 to 10, or let's say 3 to 9, the Hawks only played 9 guys last night. Do the Heat have a single advantage, player for player? I would argue no. And now, granted, I'm lower on Tyler Hero. I am not a Tyler Hero guy. He's their third best player. Maybe you could say he's the next guy. I wouldn't go there. But like the Hawks are just, to your point, much more talented than Miami. Now, the reason why, to your question about why they weren't favored or why it was so, it's because the Hawks have been so maddeningly middling this year. And obviously is a track record thing. Like Miami, I've been low on them all year. I think I'm right, honestly, at this point about Miami. But people hadn't figured out that Miami's not Miami anymore. That's number one. Number two, it's in Miami. That does matter. That's a few points either way. And then the Hawks are just like, for all the jokes, they've earned the mid label. They've been that team this year. Now, should they be? No, they're better than that on talent, but that's what they've been.
Brad, I appreciate you saying mid. I'm glad I got that out of you. But
I tried to not use it because everybody does. Like, every time that like me or Wes Morton posts one of those like, here's how mid the Hawks are, everybody's like mid. I'm like, all right, I got to figure out a different word. But that's what they've been. They've just been that.
And like it's one of those things. I think I've consistently tweeted about this. I'm like, since Quinn's taken over, like the Hawks have been playing better. It just hasn't shown up on the record. Like the Hawks had a tough schedule in the season, 1 and 2. They're playing it like they're slowly trying. They were very clearly changing the way they play defense. Like I feel like that was very obvious, and there were some real growing pains. But like they don't have that. They don't have that defensive performance if they don't have the 20+ games that Quinn Snyder has been in place, where they've completely changed how they're going to defend, teams now. Like it's more what he did in Utah. Like to me, that game defensively in particular was very reminiscent of how the Utah Jazz used to defend teams in the NBA, where it's not one individual talent defensively outside of Gobert, the monster that he was, but it was a lot on the perimeter, guys just executing the scheme, executing the game plan, and being, five guys on a string playing with each other, instead of being like individual parts trying to trying to take over a game. And also, I think a humongous X factor, like it can't go like just being able to get 14 minutes out of Jalen Johnson and the way he he kind of destroyed it was Jalen without Bam. Like the Heat had no chance when Bam was.
You're right. The crazy thing about that is, I've had this funny back and forth with some Hawks fans, Andrew Kelly, a couple of other people. Like some of the Jalen stuff has gotten out of control, and I think it's on purpose. Like the LeBron comparisons, the Magic Johnson, the Ben Simmons with a jumper. That it's become it's funny to me. I'm not worried about it.
I mean, Ben Simmons with a jumper is a bit of a stretch. He's Ben Simmons who's willing to shoot.
Sure, he's not. Yeah. Anyway, we all know it's a little bit funny, and also Jalen's upside is real. So it's not like no one's saying it's not, but it was funny to me because obviously Hawks fans have noticed this for a while. He's been playing every game for a few weeks, maybe even longer than that now, and the flashes are clear. And he had a couple plays that were maddening, like some rookie moments last night. But he made so many other plays it didn't matter. And it was just funny to see the people nationally, they were like, wait, Jalen Johnson's playing? Even people that I think are smart, that obviously have not been watching the Hawks the last few weeks and wait, Jalen Johnson's firmly playing. Because, when he checked in, I wasn't surprised. But it wasn't 100% lock he was going to play. I thought he was going to. I thought there was at least a chance they might go to 8. But he's going to play. And then, but it was people were surprised how much he played and how good he looked. I'm like, look, the flashes are not surprising at this point. He's done this for a while. The next step for him is getting it all to come into place consistently, using his talent and all that stuff. We kind of know that. But you're right. I mean, I don't want to go crazy about it, but he was really, really good in that sample size. It was a small sample, but the bench, as it has been for a while, has been awesome. And Okongwu was really good. I thought Bey, who didn't shoot it that well, played really well last night. He did a lot of little things well. He was physical. And then Bogey's, we talked about it a million times, but when Bogey's got it going at all, they're just different. And he didn't shoot it great, but he had the dunk. He was moving well, and he has to be guarded. If you watch the tape back, and I have, Miami's guarding Bogey differently than everybody else on the floor. Including Bey, who's a good shooter, obviously. But they're flying to Bogey in a way that and that's the right decision for Miami. But it's a good reminder that Bogey gets guarded like that. Obviously Trey does too, but Trey's it's a different animal. But that's why, at least part of why Bogey's so important, is that he's the one guy that's a fire drill for other teams. He gets guarded that way.
And a big factor of the Hawks sustaining their effort level all throughout the game is the depth of the front court. Bam has to play 41 for the Heat to have a chance. The Hawks can play Capella 28 minutes.
And they had foul trouble last night. Hunter and Collins both had foul trouble. It didn't matter because they had other guys to go to. And Hunter, I think even you said it, which was shocking. You admitted DeAndre Hunter being off the court was bad for the Hawks last night. But also being able to go to Bey and Jalen was great. Because Collins, it almost got underplayed. Collins got the Keith Bogans in the first half last night. He played 6 minutes, got 2 fouls, and never came back in. And it wasn't that big of a deal. Because they had guys to go to. And once he was not in foul trouble anymore, he played a lot more in the second half, played really well. He got flowers from us anyway about the way he covered Jimmy. But they suddenly don't have weaknesses. And to go back to February, what do we talk about? You and I, online, offline, their biggest problem, arguably, other than maybe perimeter defense, was the fact that they did not have any depth. And now they're healthy, number one. And with Bey, they have 9 guys. There's no weak point in the rotation anymore.
To have somebody in reserve like AJ Griffin, where there's not many.
He's not even playing.
The Miami Heat would have. I'm pretty sure Eric Spoelstra would have gave his right leg for somebody like AJ Griffin to just throw out there for spacing and athleticism on defense, and they can scheme him up defensively. With the Heat, with their defensive scheme, he'd have been a really big boost for the Miami Heat because they desperately need shooting. And the Hawks, he's a luxury item where it's it
was the right move to not play him. And we both love AJ. I would not have played him last night, and they didn't play him. And credit to the Hawks. It's probably because they won, but did you see anybody complaining about them not playing AJ last night?
Of course not.
No. And it's because they won. I understand that, but there's no reason to play him. And that's not because AJ's not good. He's going to be really good in the future. He's already a playable guy now, But in the playoffs, you don't need to play 10 guys. And like, what would have been the reason to play AJ Griffin? Like they don't need it if they're fully healthy as they were right now. Again, knock on wood. Hunter looks like he's fine again physically. They don't need to play him, and it's a huge luxury because like he had how many games in a row? I think he played like 60 games in a row this year before he got the DNP-CD as a rookie, which is awesome for him. And that's why it's not a big deal either. Like he's played enough for like development. Like it'd be nice to have him get some playoff reps, but like you're trying to win, so I get it. But if he plays against Boston, I won't be surprised. It's a different matchup, but like they might need him against Boston. It's possible.
They might need him. They might need Aaron Holiday just for defensive purposes, and like they might need to play like Jalen at the 5. Like that's what I don't want to preview.
Or Collins at the 5 Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think because
whoever you consider to be the 5 when those two are on the floor together.
Well, we'll get into it. I was going to ask you about Boston. Obviously, we'll get into that at the end of the podcast. But because one of the things about that series is that it's so different, and the pressure they put on you on offense, and you know how I feel about Clint. A time or two against Boston this year, Clint was like almost unplayable because the way that Boston plays. Now, if they play Robert Williams and he's healthy now, that's obviously where you want Clint on the floor. Clint versus Robert Williams is fine. But if they go Horford at center or they go Grant Williams at center, and the way that they fly around the perimeter, this is where it comes into play to have all this versatility and have guys that you can play at center. Conley was obviously just inherently an awesome fit against Boston. But you have Collins, you have Jalen. Like you might – realistically, by game 2, game 3, I don't think it's going to happen in game 1, but if they're down 2-0 going in game 3 or something like that, and Clint just can't hang, they might play Clint 12 minutes, and it won't surprise me. Even though Clint is all like everybody knows I love Clint.
Brad, I'll say this: considering how the rotation shook out in this Heat game, where JC basically didn't play after the 2 fouls in the first half, I could see something happen like that with Capella, where. If Robert Williams is out the game, like in the first game, like if Robert Williams is out the game, like Quinn just yanks Clint. Like he only plays.
I think because I appreciated the way that Quinn treated it like it was a must-win game because it was.
Yeah.
Like I know you don't go home if you lose. I get that, but you need to treat that game like it was a must-win. And for me, especially game 1, because that's the one in my mind. We'll get into it in a second more, but. If you're trying to be serious about stealing the series, that's the one you got to get. You got to get game 1 because you have a little bit of a freshness advantage, and like they might be a little bit rusty. They haven't played in a week. You had this great win. You're healthy. They're a little bit banged up. Jaylen Brown's got the weird thing on his hand or whatever. This is it's an afternoon game, kind of a sleepy spot. Like this is the one you got to steal. So yeah, I'm with you. Coaches too often wait till game 2 or game 3. To do these changes. Like Ty Lue's infamous for it. They go down 0-2 in every series, and then he's finally like, oh, by the way, here's my best lineup, and they start winning. Like you can't, especially if you're the 7 seed, which the Hawks are, I don't care what anybody says, the Hawks are the underdog against Boston. If you didn't feel that way against Miami, hat tip to you, they're not better than Boston. They could win the series if they play great. Boston's better than them, obviously. So you need to treat it like that. And you don't say it out loud, but if you're Quinn, you got to be assertive and aggressive. And I think it's not only about Clint, but you got to treat the whole series like, hey, we're on from the minute go. And if there's a guy who can't hang, whether it's Clint, whether it's if Jalen's just out of it for whatever reason, you got to pull the plug because he's a young guy. If Bogey's knees messed up one night and he can't move, you can't play him. That kind of stuff.
Or Brad, if it's Trae Young just getting smoked defensively.
They're not pulling Trae Young though.
I mean, I feel like he went a little early to pull Trae Young in that third quarter. I need to relook at the tape where it because it was.
Yeah, he wasn't. That was. Is that when he had? I don't have my notes in front of me. Was that when he had his worst stretch? Because he had one really bad stretch in the game. Is that what you're talking about? Where he was just kind of out of it. Like
he had a couple. He had a weird stretch in the first half where he took a 35-footer when Kevin Love was on the floor. And that was
we joked about it last night with Glenn and Kevin that you brought up earlier, but they had some really bad moments last night in a game they played great, especially the ones that were funny. We were laughing about last night were the ones at the very end when it was probably over, and the one thing you can't do is just throw pick sixes, and they did it twice in a row. What are you doing?
It was incredible.
It was incredible.
Late game execution is going to be a problem for this Hawks team because they have not executed
all year long. And that's, actually, we'll get into that too in a second. All right, we'll take one more break. We'll come back. Me and Tyler talking about mostly Hawks Celtics from this point forward. So stay tuned. Be right back. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here. It's also baseball season as well, with the Grand Slams, no-hitters, and double plays returning to your lives in a big way. And there's no better place to get on the NBA or MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're a new customer, get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 with FanDuel. And the bonus bet's coming back to you if your first bet does not win with FanDuel. Download the Sportsbook app right now. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. Anything you're looking for in the sports world. That includes point spreads and totals, money lines, futures, player props, live betting, and much more. And the Hawks begin their first round series, of course, on Saturday afternoon in Boston. FanDuel has a series price for you, how many games the series are going to actually have in it as an option to bet on, game one odds, and much more on Hawks Celtics. And plus, once you combine the best together for a bigger payout with a same game parlay, don't miss a chance right now to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Official sport partner of the NBA and MLB. All right. Late game stuff is a question. I wonder what you think about it in general. This applies to the series, of course, but what do you think the problem is? Is it just the hero ball? Is it a mental thing? Why can't they seem to execute? And I know we're talking about this after a win, but they were comfortably winning, which was good because no one would have been comfortable if the Hawks were up by 5 with 3 minutes to go.
I'll say this, to be fair to them, I thought they did execute until those last
in the middle stretch. Yeah. And from the 7-minute mark to the 4-minute mark.
Stretch, I thought they were really doing a great job of executing, getting the matchups they want, and really not settling. I think that's
the sneaky one. You'll love this. The sneaky shot for me, and I try to say it on the podcast, that floater that John hit to go up, I think it was either 9 or 11, was a sneaky, huge shot. Because if that doesn't go in, it starts teetering a little bit, and obviously we're both pro Collins, but they had a couple of those in that fourth quarter where they were one empty trip away from feeling like it was not going to go well, but they kept making that play, which they haven't made this year. A lot of the time, that's been a lot of their problem this year is they can't get that one play or that 2 plays in a row to get over the top. And at the end, we make fun of the bad turnovers, but they did, to your point, they made those plays in the middle of the fourth.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the late game stuff, honestly, it might be too much pressure, in part because they can't get stops defensively. They know they have to score.
Yeah. And
it's okay, we know we have to score, but we're trying to bleed clock. To me, I'm Trey and DeJounte in particular are thinking too much instead of just running the offense. And I felt like that Heat stretch, where they really to me they sealed the game. I felt like the Hawks were at least executing, even if the shots weren't going in. They were getting what they wanted. They were consistently. I felt like they were consistently getting good shots and getting the Heat in rotation to give themselves a chance on the offensive glass. Because really, they won the game in offensive glass, where they just basically at some point the pressure is completely off. Where it's make or miss, just get the shot up. They're not getting the offensive rebound. I've seen
they got 40%. The Hawks, I think, was 39% off the rebound rate last night, and they held Miami to 20 or something. It was very, very lopsided. And for the Hawks, as crazy as this is, the Hawks' bread and butter is taking care of the ball, right? They're top 5 in the league in turnover rate. They have been the last 2 years. They lost the turnover battle last night to Miami. It didn't matter at all.
Yeah, it didn't help that Jalen had 3 turnovers. And
like we said earlier, he had a couple of, and I'm not trying to pick on him. He had he had more good plays than bad plays, no question. But he had a couple of bad ones.
And to me, I really feel strongly about this. The key to really how far the Hawks go this playoffs, even though it's weird to say, is how much can the Hawks get from Jalen Johnson? Because he is such a to me, he's such a difference maker on the perimeter defensively. It is so obvious guys are so uncomfortable when he's on them, or he's closing out them, or he's just guarding them one-on-one. and he's like taking the hand, like he's just poking the ball away like they're middle schoolers.
He's just so long, man. He's so long.
He's long and athletic, and he's huge, and he closes out, and he's done like, and he doesn't give up cheap fouls. Now Butler got him a couple times, but
Jimmy, there was one play. Jimmy very obviously like wanted to get Jalen, knowing he was going to foul him. Like he set it up like 3 times in a row. He was trying to get the switch, trying to get the switch. Finally gets Jalen, and then like immediately drew a foul. And I was like, well, that's I want to say that's the
inexperience.
Like
that's inexperience. Because it's like, John and Clint are battle tested. Like they've seen the Jimmy Butler types in the playoffs, and they know how to stay solid. But that there is a real pressure in the playoffs, like that Jalen has not particularly felt. And I thought, that with the importance of that game, I thought he played well. Like even
he did
through the stuff, like even with the missed free throws and all that. Like, and like to me, it's like, how can the Hawks get him? Can they get 15 plus minutes every night in the playoffs? Because that'll be a difference in transition where you get easy baskets, you get easy lob, like easy 3-point attempts and lobs attempts in transition, just because he's such a force of nature. And as a full court player, that's something that the Hawks just don't have. Like he's a weapon the Hawks don't have, and teams aren't necessarily like, if you're not scheming for it, like he's going to catch these guys unawares. And even if you are scheming for it, he's smart enough to take what the defense gives him and get, Bogey and Bay open 3-point shots. Like, how much can he impact the game in the limited amount of space? Because the downside is, like, to me, Jalen kind of currently reminds me a lot of what Kyle Anderson brings to the table for the Timberwolves, and just in general, what Kyle Anderson brings was like, very, like, they're different players, but like Kyle Anderson brings great defense, great ball mover, long, athletic. The difference is like, Jalen's he's actually NBA speed.
I was gonna say he's actually fast. No, I mean, honestly though, I agree with it.
But like the downside with Kyle, because if people watch that Minnesota Lakers game, Kyle Anderson can't shoot, and like teams don't respect his jumper, and like teams clearly do not respect Jalen Johnson's 3-point shot,
and they probably shouldn't right now.
No, they should,
to be honest. Yeah. So, and I get it. So it's big because this, as we get sort of talk about Boston, like I agree with everything you just said, and also they just kind of need him more in this series than they did against Miami defensively, just because of the matchup. Like with Miami, we talked about it earlier, but Jimmy's the only guy that really terrifies you. Boston's got 2 of them, and Boston's supporting pieces. Marcus Smart, for all of his flaws, is capable of beating you up off the dribble if you have someone that can't guard him. Like Marcus Smart will beat you. Like he's not a guy that you're terrified of, but he's got more verve than Gabe Vincent does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he has to be guarded with a serious person. Same with Derek White. Derek White's found the Lord this year and has been awesome all year long. He was bad in the playoffs last year, but like has confidence again. And then you got their shooters everywhere. If they want to go to Hauser, they can. Grant Williams can shoot. Al's been playing great, etc. Like Jalen, both as someone who can guard Brown or Tatum if you need him to, but also be the secondary havoc creator. It's big because I wonder what they will do. I think they probably won't want to put Jalen on one of those guys unless they have to. Like they might even go with like Sadiq Bey. Almost. Bay's not better at that than Jalen, but because they kind of just want Jalen to do Jalen stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What I want, because I was going to say what I want Jalen, because what scares me the most about the Celtics isn't even their individual players; it's how they play the game of basketball.
Yeah, they
get up so many threes, and 3-point shooting is their thing. So, like, to get how they get to those threes is by passing and ball movement. Mm-hmm. And to me, I want Jalen off the ball, hawking the passing lanes, just so that everybody, and like closing out the shooters, making people aware of his presence physically as a perimeter player. Because like that's going to me, even because it's like the Hawks' point of attack defense they have to be solid, like they have to be good on that end to have a chance. But like even more important, like they have to be physical on the perimeter, not just on the ball, but off the ball. Like everybody has to be connected while also staying connected with each other and communicating. Like it's a lot of stuff. Like it's a lot of processing that has to go on, but you got to get to basketball. And like to me, what excites me about Jalen is he has such quick twitch. Is he's able to just get the ball, like the Celtics, for all their strengths, don't have these elite. Like they're not elite passers. Like they're good individually.
No.
But
that's
not,
one of their questions.
It's not LeBron James. Like it's not LeBron James out there. Cross court. Like it's very basic, rudimentary stuff that works for them. But it's easy if you're able to properly read the game and your guys are set up properly. You take away the easy stuff. You force them to be uncomfortable with your size and your athleticism. If you're Jalen, now you have opportunity to steal the ball, get the ball in transition, score easy buckets. Like to me, the key to the Celtics Hawks series is how much pressure can the Hawks put on the Celtics so that if the Celtics miss a couple threes, do they think about it? If you close out so hard without fouling, of course, like do they think about, like, you got to make them feel the pressure, because I mean the last game didn't matter, but you saw how, like, that's their DNA.
Well,
three, that's what they do.
Yeah, so all 3 games. Obviously, the last one is kind of a write-off because nobody played, but it does remind you of like the way they want to play. Different players, but like they are gonna keep firing. Boston does not care. They're gonna take 3. If they're open, they're gonna shoot, and that's good and bad. If they make them, you're in deep trouble. It does give you some variance because if they have and look, they're not going to make 45% of threes in every game in the series, I don't think.
Brad.
But I'm just saying,
like the Cleveland Cavaliers of LeBron.
Well, I know,
James,
I know, and it's possible they can do it.
Love make 8 threes.
We were all there. But look, I mean, again, so that the last game didn't matter, but it was a barrage. Hauser, Pritchard, Muscala, they're all yanking. So, but the first 2 games, when the teams were trying, Boston made 20 or more threes in both of them. And like, they can do that to you if you're not ready to go. And it's not necessarily an individual thing for the defense. Boston's really good, which is part of it. Like the way they play, especially without Robert Williams, who's really good. And their numbers with him are better than when they're not. But offensively, they're better without him because they play so free and everybody can shoot on the whole roster. He's the only guy they play that can't shoot. The only one out of like the 10 of the guys that they play. So it's a different matchup altogether. They know that. And that's what is so big about having these 3 days to prepare, is that Quinn's like, all right, guys, this is a different challenge. Kudos to you for the way you played against Miami. We have to guard Boston differently. And they all know it. But I'm with you. They have to be physical. They can't shy away. And they can't get broken by it too, because they got to know. And I don't know how you coach it, but they got to know that Boston's going to have a half or 2 at a minimum where they just make everything, and you can't get out of it. You got to play through it and not get broken by it. Because if you start breaking down and overhelping, like that's the tendency of this Hawks team. Bogey's as a notorious overhelper, for instance.
Yeah.
You can't overhelp against Boston or they're going to absolutely kill you. They're already tough as it is, but you got to make the guys that, you got to make Derek White beat you. You got to make Marcus Smart beat you. You got to make Grant Williams beat you. You got to even make I love Al Horford. Got to make Al Horford beat you. You can't just
like you can't just let him be a pick.
All these guys, you got to go. Honestly,
the
only guy on Boston's roster that I would prefer not drive is Jaylen Brown. Everybody else, I want them driving. Tatum included. Now Tatum can obviously do it, but he's an awesome player. But everybody else, I'd rather have them driving. I guess maybe Marcus Smart, you let him just shoot threes because it's Marcus Smart. He might just miss. But like White, Grant, if they play Hauser at all those guys, you got to make them drive. Horford especially, because he's not the most like adept at this point, like around the rim for a center. So I don't know. It's a challenge. And I think the Hawks also know deep down that they're going to have to score in this series. I mean, Boston's really good defensively, but they're not perfect defensively. Like they can play lineups that are perfect defensively. If they go out there, it's kind of the same thing with Robert Williams before. If they play their best defensive lineup, they're incredible on defense. Like if they play White, Smart, the two wings, and Robert Williams, something like that, or Horford and Big, they have like 6 guys who are awesome defenders. So if they play those lineups together, then they're great defensively, but then they're a lot worse on offense. So like there is a little bit of wiggle room with Boston where like you got to force them out of their comfort zone. I don't know. It's not like they're not perfect. I'll say that. Like you can play with them, but I agree with you. Like being physical and the way they play against Miami is not replicable in a lot of ways, but they can pride themselves on being that physical again because they were incredibly athletic and forceful and physical. And Boston is, Miami's, you would think it'd be more used to that, and it still overwhelmed them. Like Boston's much more of a finesse team than Miami is. They're better than Miami by a lot, but they're much more like, soft's not the right word. They're not soft, but they're much more of a finesse team.
They're not a team. Well, at least in this new iteration of their team, like they're not a very physicality is not what you worry about. Where you worry about with the Heat, like the Celtics,
their offensive skill team.
Their offense is pure. Like it's not pure, but like they're a driving kick, get your open 3-pointer. Make it like they don't.
I thought
they attack the rim differently than any other team in the NBA. So like the Hawks have got to be able to recognize that and adjust properly. But
yeah, no, I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't listen to it, but it was in my feed in this podcast feed today. They did it was one of those pre-series sort of playoff previews with Boston with John Corrales, who hosts Locked On Celtics. And I thought it was interesting and revealing, and John's a smart guy. He essentially just like he was asked about it, and he was like, no, this is an offense first team this year. Like Boston in the past has organizationally thought of themselves as a defense first team with Udoka, especially all that stuff, like the way they were prided themselves last year. They had a good offense too, but like he basically just said it flat out, like with Missoula, they may say they're a defense first team. They're built offense first this year. The way they play, the way that they, three-point shooting is not only that, but I think they're number 2 in the league in three-pointers per game behind only Golden State. Like they rely on three-pointers a lot. And yeah, they drive to create kickouts. They're not all driving to get to the rim and finish. They're trying to get you on the move and rotating and over-rotating. And then defensively, again, they're still really good defensively. Like if you look at the tail of the tape or whatever, to go like boxing term, Boston's got the better offense and the better defense on paper. The Hawks are closer on offense. Obviously, the Hawks, I think, at their best on offense are just as good as Boston is. Defensively, Boston is better than Atlanta. They just are. But there's a way if the Hawks have their best offensive game, and what are they, number 2 in the league since the break, whatever it is, number 3 in the league since the break. You play like that, then suddenly you're in a potential shootout, and that might favor you in this matchup. Obviously, the three-point line favors Boston all the way across. They just take so many more of them. But I don't know. The Hawks can score with anybody, so it's not like but you can't give up. This is going to be very simplified. You can't allow Boston to take 45 threes a game. Like they can't take that many threes. You're going to lose. You're just going to lose. And
you can't give up easy 3-pointers. You got to take away the easy stuff. Like that.
It can't be the LeBron Cavs 3-pointers. To your point earlier, it can't be that. Because
I mean, that is flat out. And to not do that, you have to execute as a team defensively. And like, we'll see if they can do that. But I do think offense is important. Like, offensively, it's important that they continue what they did against the Heat. They were very smart in how they attacked the Miami Heat, like, and consistently execute the game plan where it's not, we're just taking a bunch of mid-rangers, Like, that's like the key for the Hawks is to get the Celtics in rotation so that you can get offensive rebound opportunities, even if your good shooters miss shots, because you have elite rebound. Like Capella's possibly the best rebounder in the NBA. You got a Kongwu, you got Jalen, you got John, you got Sadiq Bey, you even got DeAndre Hunter if he's guarded by a little guy, So
shots fired.
No, I mean,
I know.
You think I'm joking? Like DeAndre was incredible. Rebounding the ball.
He played really well.
I that pass to Bogey. I
almost said that was the best pass he's ever thrown. I'm pretty sure. And look, I'm not hyperbolic. I think, I'm not sure. I think that was the best pass he's ever thrown in the NBA. I think.
I think so. It shocked everybody because they left Bogey wide open.
Everybody,
does that.
Everybody, and it was all, and it didn't quite get played up on the broadcast because like they're not, it was a nice pass, but it wasn't like nice out of the ordinary for a lot of guys. But like for everybody that's like a diehard, like Glenn was like falling on the floor. Glenn's like, did anybody see that pass? Like we're in Slack talking about like, did anybody see that Hunter pass? Like what just happened? I don't know. Anyway,
Capella had some good passes to end the game.
He did. He had the one after the offensive rebound that was to Bogey on that cut for the dunk, and that was a really nice play. Anyway, okay, so X factors. I agree with your Jalen take. Being physical is huge. This is a very obvious one. You just can't get bludgeoned from three. They know that. And Quinn even said in a game it didn't matter. He did that in-game interview on ESPN against Boston in the last game of the season. And the first thing he said was, we can't allow them to shoot this many threes. Not make, shoot this many threes. And I always say that. People like roll their eyes. I'm like, look, you don't want to have the opponent take twice as many three-pointers as you in the modern NBA. That's not good. You're going to lose. Like, because these guys are pros. They're going to make shots. Like, and he knows that. So they're not going to take more than Boston in the series. We all know that. Boston's going to shoot more than Atlanta does. It just can't be lopsided, like crazy lopsided, especially when you're playing against a team that has a bunch of shooters and like maybe they go cold. But
like the thing is, they haven't played them this year, but like the Hawks have played the Celtics well in the Trae Young era, like fairly consistently, where they've gotten good stuff. A lot of it is, Trae Young, John Collins pick and roll. Like the Celtics haven't never really solved that equation, but the Hawks don't. I mean, there's some like I feel like there's some stuff offensively the Hawks are going to have to do to shake up what the Celtics are expecting the Hawks to do, if that makes any sense. Like they're going to have to do they're going to have to do stuff a little different, or go back to their roots, which I said with Collins, involving Collins more in the offense. Even though I have liked what he's done as just a pure spot up guy, but like I think
I like that idea too. Like Glenn said this too, and go back to Miami mini series, but like Glenn called it basically, and like the game plan that they used in the last game against Miami in the regular season is what they largely used, and it worked on offense, and that's why having 3 days to prepare, it doesn't fix every problem, but this is, and I'm not trying to pile on Nate. That's been done enough, but I do think that they have a staff and a head coach in particular that like is capable of like throwing some wrinkles in that we would not have seen before. And maybe it's something that they saw in the last game of the season, maybe something that they find during the series, but they're not going to just go out there and bang their heads against the wall on offense. They're going to change them. If they need to change some stuff, they will.
Like Trae Young's brilliant. Like he just needs an edge. He just needs an edge. Give him a little. So he's not, I appreciate Quinn taking more of the reins of the offense from Trae and having there's a lot, like Quinn's doing a lot of coaching with Trae. And like, I really, the rumor mill might not like it, but I feel like they have a pretty good relationship. Like
Trae averaged 31 and 11 against Boston this year, 2 games. And he wasn't like incredibly efficient. Like he was solidly efficient. But this isn't a situation where like Miami's had Trae's number in recent days. That's not what Boston could say. Like they have guys throwing him. They have White and they have Smart and they have even Tatum if they want to. But Trae is seemingly more comfortable against Boston than he was against Miami. And he played well against Miami too, just for the record. He wasn't perfect last night, but he played well. But he's not like struggling against Boston is what I wanted to make sure we got out there. Like this is a more comfortable spot for him than previous, even if Boston is, in my mind, better than Miami defensively because their personnel is better. But there's no no negative juju hanging out with this series like it is with Miami.
Well, it helps when you're not trying to dribble through the entire team. So,
first half. Well, we should say this: they had 17 assists in the first 17 minutes yesterday. That is insane for anyone.
Quinn ball. Brad, did you there are a lot of highlights where the Hawks were just pinging the ball around the floor.
I was tweeting.
Who is this team? Where have they been? So
well, they actually kind of regressed to their old team after that.
Well, yeah.
But hey, it was a nice quarter and a half to just watch some the ball zinging around. But anyway, I'm gonna hold off on like predictions or whatever because it doesn't do any good. There's still 3 days left, and no one's picking the Hawks in the series. It's just not gonna happen. But by the way, and the Hawks should love that. Like I'm sure you saw the social media team did the rounds of like nobody picked us in the Miami game. That's good. The locker room, they should love that. If you're a Hawks fan, I get that you want their respect. I think it's better for the Hawks that no one's picking them.
Absolutely. Trey with expectations. No.
Trey likes to be
being an underdog. Trey being an underdog, and he's going to get the FU chant in Boston.
Oh, on a Saturday afternoon, people can just liquor it up by 4 p.m. Yeah. It's gonna be incredible.
It's gonna be. I'm like, Trey's gonna be in the zone. I'm like, he might hit 2 3-pointers against the Celtics.
Okay, before we go, and we do have to go. Are you worried about shooting? Because I am. He's either not taking very many and he's not making very many. And it's been 3-4 weeks now. He's not shooting the ball well from the perimeter.
If it means anything, I am thankful that he at least took 8 threes.
He got him up. He didn't make them, but he got him up. That's better for sure.
But I mean, it's hard not to be concerned, but it's also like he does go through these stretches where he can't make a 3-pointer. And it's kind of unfortunate. But then he has stretches where he's hitting every step back 3-pointer that he takes. So I don't know. Hopefully the break, maybe he's working out some stuff. It's tough with Trey. He's a weird shooter. He's a very good 3-point shooter who goes through stretches where he can't make anything, and then he will just turn into Ben Simmons where he won't shoot it. And it's
just for some numbers here, the last 12 games of the regular season, he only attempted 4.7 per game and made 32% of them. And yet he took 8 in the playing game. That's a step forward. But I will go as far as to say the Hawks not only need him to take more, but he's going to have to make threes if they're going to win the series. Absolutely. That's a very simple point, but there's no way they're winning the series if he's not at least taking them. He's got to take them.
The upside, if he's making his 3-pointers, Hawks,
they're very hard to guard.
Because it's just almost impossible to handle Trae Young if he's making his 3-pointers. But
he's unguardable.
Unfortunately for him, he's got to make them. That's just flat. That's the series they're in. That's the team that they have. They need him to take 3-pointers and make them. So
and I do think that probably not to the Miami level of last year, but if I'm Boston, if I'm Joe Mazzulla, I probably make other guys beat me for a while. I probably load up to Trey, maybe not in the same way that Miami did last year when they just had no other threats, but I think coming into the series, Boston's probably going to game plan to be like, we would like Trey not to beat us, and we're gonna make DeAndre Hunter and John Collins and whoever else make shots. And if they make them, maybe they change things. But I would expect that to be the game plan from Boston. Obviously, Trey's good enough where it may not matter. He might just still have 35 points, but they should at least, in my mind, probably try to take Trey away early.
I think the biggest thing, even more than Trey making and taking 3-pointers, is he can't force the issue though. There's a weird there's a line he has to navigate. It's a tough line, but that's why he's making the big bucks. That's why he's a superstar.
That's why
he's also
different. Yep.
That's why everybody's thinking he's
well, and it's not fair, but it is fair because that's the whole podcast we can do at a different point. But he does get discussed differently. Because that's the job. If you're the guy, that's the case anywhere. Trey's bad game, Trey's middling game is going to get 10 times the attention of a middling game from DeAndre Hunter or Sadiq Bey or whatever. That's the thing. We all know that. And that news cycle was absurd. But he's just going to get, especially now. You thought it was bad before. That was a playing game against Miami. They're playing the Celtics.
Yeah.
Every single game is going to be analyzed to death. So just prepare. Everybody take a deep breath because if Trey doesn't come out and have 40 in game 1, it's going to be all over again. They're going to do it again. So just be prepared.
I don't know. Maybe this is an off-pod discussion, but I really wish basketball discourse can change. Somebody got to do something. It's a play to make like it's a game that with real stakes and real importance. And the thing we're talking about is a potential trade 2 years from now or something. Like instead of like the matchup, instead of talking about like what do either like I heard not like this is a national spotlight. It's an opportunity to talk about Jalen Johnson on Onyeka Okongwu. Whether I'm pretty sure Heat fans were surprised Okongwu just destroyed them in his back 20 minutes and like had 4 blocks. And I'm like, Okongwu's done that all year, basically. Onyeka Okongwu should be in the running for 6th man of the year. He will get no votes for it.
Oh, he might get a 3rd place or something. You're right. I think I have at some point when there's not games happening every single day or whatever, I'm going to do a mailbag question, and I've done some research for it. Somebody asked me if the Hawks had any candidates for any league-wide awards, and I was like, realistically, no. But if you had to pick some, I think AJ, 2nd-team All-Rookie, is the most likely thing to happen. But Okongwu does have a legitimate 6th man of the year case. He won't win. He won't come over close. But like as far as like impact is concerned, pretty good player. And also, can we just take a second to just talk about him stonewalling Bam to the point of a jump ball?
That jump ball was a pity whistle from the officials.
That was
he stole the ball from him.
He just took the ball away from him.
He just straight up took it. And like,
oh man,
I don't know. He has those moments. Like that's the type of defensive talent that he is. Like we seen him do it against Jokic. We seen him do it against Giannis. Like, and he does it sometimes. He'll do it against NBA. Like he'll have these moments where he gets in a defensive zone where you just can't do anything against him individually, and like he'll just take stuff away from you.
My 48-minute center point was never stronger than it was yesterday.
Absolutely, yeah,
never stronger because they were both really good at the same time. All right,
I mean,
Tyler.
They're not as good as the Timberwolves.
Come on. So is Rudy going to play on Friday? I assume he's going to play.
They needed him on. They
did need him. They needed him on
I understood the message they sent because really, I'm pretty sure Rudy. Like, sorry, Hawks fan. I'm going to talk about the Timberwolves for a bit because I did find the story a little fascinating. I felt like if Jaden McDaniels didn't punch a wall, Rudy plays. But because Jaden punched the wall, if this makes sense, where they're really sending a message to like really Anthony Edwards and Karl Towns, like, guys, listen, you guys can't compound a mistake by punching a wall. Like that's and we can't suspend Jaden, so we're gonna suspend Rudy, who everybody hates apparently. Though, like it turns out at the end of the game, Karl Towns got super exhausted, and they were playing Nathan Knight backup.
Well, it's because Towns actually, to his credit, played really good defense for the first time in 3 years and was tired because he was playing defense. He doesn't usually do that. Yeah. So anyway, Wolves segment over.
Five first round picks. It could be worse.
Do you want to give your official pick, or do you want to hold it for something else?
What official pick I'm going to say? The Hawks are. I want the Hawks to win, so I'm going to say the Hawks are going to win.
Okay, that's fine. That's why I wanted you to say it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, they're going to win game 1, then they're going to win game 2, game 3, and game 4. It's going to be a 4-game sweep. They win every game.
I saw a number. Oh man, I must look at this. So if you have a FanDuel account because you're in a state where you can, right? You're in Tennessee.
Yep.
Allegedly, FanDuel is a sponsor for this podcast. I'm sure the price on Hawks in 4 is just very juicy. If you want to get on that, I'm sure that's a very nice price for you.
I gambled on the Hawks last season.
I remember this.
I lost.
That was it for you.
Money.
That was it for you.
I'm never gambling again. It's not for me. It's not for me.
You don't need it. Listen, for a lot of people, they need it, or it can help you get invested, and it can be kind of fun to kind of sweat. You are plenty invested now.
The thing is, like I gambled, and it made me hate the sport of basketball. I was like,
well, that's good. That you shouldn't do that
because it was
not fun.
Because Brad, I was getting mad at like these COVID protocols. The Hawks that's what killed me. That's what killed me. And I'm like, Adam Silver legitimately owes me money, but like, what can I do? Like, am I gonna make COVID's it's still a very serious problem for a lot of people. But that destroyed me last year.
I have a question before we go. Did you end up wagering on a Hawks game that featured any of the following players? Wes Iwundu, Cam Oliver, Malcolm Hill, any of those guys? Lance Stevenson, any of those guys play in one of those games?
Because I gambled, I simply gambled on the over. Of course I did. It was
Malcolm Hill.
And I gambled amount of money because the odds weren't in my favor. Because the over, if you remember, now I'm relitigating the bet. But the Hawks over under was low. It was low. And everybody was like, yo, I'm like, it's easy money. This is guaranteed. Let me put some good change in this. And I learned there's no such thing as a guarantee in this world. I couldn't. I mean, but if COVID didn't happen, they would have got the over. But COVID didn't happen.
Wes Iwundu, Cam Oliver, Malcolm
Brad,
Hill.
I was every game. I'm white knuckling. I'm like, come on, guys, just
Lance Stevenson. The Hawks. That would be an incredible trivia question one day that I will give someone. That Lance Stevenson played 6 games for the Hawks last year. That happened. Lance Stevenson. That really took place.
He played so well, he got a contract with the Pacers, Brad.
He sure did. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you, sir, for joining me. You
brought up some real bad moves. I did. Off.
You'll do that after this podcast is over. I don't know when you'll be back, but it won't be very long. Maybe later in the series, maybe after the series, maybe whenever. We'll talk.
We got a preview round 2, Brad.
We will have preview round 2 if that happens. That's true. I'll have to get your takes once you actually watch some draft prospects. I'll have to get your takes on those guys in the near future.
Do not take do not take Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson.
I agree with you on that. I agree with that assessment. We have to do this before we get out of here. Do you have anything to plug? Anime or what's going on? What are you watching?
What am I going to tell you guys? I'm watching
You're watching baseball right now.
I'm currently watching baseball. I watched Acuna get thrown out at second base, and I'm not happy. So, but the anime I'm watching, I'm watching all the anime. If it's from Shonen Jump, I'm watching it. So Demon Slayer, Hell's Paradise, all the Shonen Jump shows, I'm probably going to be watching them. I don't have any takes. Demon Slayer is still great, but the other stuff, I'm watching Gundam. I'm watching Gundam. I'm a big Gundam guy now. Witch and Mercury, first season was incredible. So I'm about to get caught up on that. Still watching Vinland Saga, of course, on Netflix. Still great. And I'm still playing this video game, Brad, of part 2 of 11 of these 100-hour video games. And I committed myself to this series. It's a game from 2005 that I'm playing, Brad. So it's 2005 onboarding graphics.
That's right. That's right in the wheelhouse for people like me and you at this age.
Yeah, people being like OBJ is old is killing me. It is killing. I've heard because I like to listen to fantasy football podcasts because they're funny guys. And they're just killing how OBJ is 31. He's an old man on the hill. I'm like, I'm 31. And then Kyrie Irving's up for extension. Everybody's talking about, he's 31. He's over, can you extend somebody that old?
Welcome to my world, man. I'm older than you, and I'm older than you, and it doesn't get better from here, my friend. I'm just telling you that right now.
Me and Kyrie Irving was in college at the same time. I knew the people that Kyrie knew. I don't understand what's happening. So
when you're me, you appreciate the work of people like Udonis Haslem and Charlie Morton, who are still older than me, doing what they do. Because very soon there'll be no one older than me. I'm getting there. Very soon. The Hawks haven't had anybody older than me since Vince. The last time the Hawks had a guy who was older than me is Vince.
The Hawks refuse to employ anybody 30 years old. So
they only have 31 and under, other than Vince Carter, who is a special exemption. All right, we're off the rails. Thank you, sir. I sincerely appreciate your time on this podcast. You'll be back soon. If everybody's always asking, Tyler's always coming back at some point. I promise you, it's going to happen. It's usually my fault when it's too long in between. We even do this podcast. I am on the road from parts unknown, which you can probably see if you're on YouTube right now. But we'll do it again. very soon. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett.
As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast. I will have at least one more episode after this one before the game on Saturday. I don't know when, but subscribe across podcast platforms, and I promise you we'll have it when it drops. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.